everybody. It's that time again. It's time for you to have a stroke of good luck and learn more about menopause. In a stroke of just a few minutes, you'll know a whole lot more than you do already. And I hope that today's lesson doesn't give you a stroke, quite the opposite, because that's what I'm talking about today, stroke. But I'm going to help you avoid ever actually having one. This is still part of our unit on heart attack. It's video number 182, and it's the 23rd video in the series of videos on heart attack. It's a big topic, and stroke is a big deal. I've noticed that people tend to worry more about one disease or another for various reasons. Sometimes they worry most about the diseases family members have had. Sometimes they worry most about the diseases with which they are most familiar. Other times they worry about the diseases they hear others mention the most. Sometimes they're the diseases that are most likely to affect them, but sometimes they aren't. Stroke is one of the diseases of great concern to postmenopausal women. And in the case of stroke, it's a good thing to have it on your radar because it's a disease for which a lot of postmenopausal women are at high risk. So whether or not you've ever given much thought to stroke, please watch this video. I'll make it so that you know what you need to know and can do what you need to do to decrease your risk. If you've got my book, either the first edition or the second edition, we're still on chapter 28, at the very end in the short section on stroke. And this video is going to elaborate much more than I have in the book. So even if you have the book, watch the video. You know, people use the word stroke a lot, but there are other terms for a stroke. See how well you can answer this quiz question. Other terms for stroke include A, cerebrovascular accident, B, cerebral hemorrhage, C, cerebral ischemia, D, cerebral infarct, E, transient ischemic attack, F, lacunar infarct, G, subarachnoid hemorrhage, H, all of the above, I, none of the above, J, A and D above, K, B and G above, L, D and F above. Were some of those familiar? Are you trying to figure out what the differences are between a hemorrhage, an infarct, and ischemia? Do the terms accident and attack sound legitimate? Now, I don't expect you to know all those terms. Most people know one or two of them, but I always try to give you the most complete education I can. And it's important for you to know that there's more than one term for stroke. So I'll show you that quiz question again, this time with the answer highlighted in bold. Isn't that shocking? It's all of the above. Can you believe that so many different terms refer to the very same disease process? Now, you don't need to remember all these terms. What you need is to understand that the disease process that causes them is the same. So let's talk about the disease process. That's what we'll get started with. You might be wondering why I would discuss stroke in the unit on heart attack. Well, it's because stroke is really a heart attack in your brain. Of course, that sounds crazy. You don't have a heart in your brain. But the very same logic you learned about heart attack applies to a stroke. Way back in video 161, I taught you that a heart attack is a roadblock in the arteries that supply your heart. And that roadblock consists of lipids that build up in the walls of the arteries that go to your heart. Well, in the case of stroke, the very same thing happens. The big difference is that instead of having a roadblock in the arteries that go to your heart, the roadblock occurs in the arteries that go to your brain. So in the case of stroke, lipids build up in the arteries that go to your brain. Those arteries are called your carotid arteries. The anatomy looks something like this. But the result is the same. Anything beyond the roadblock is deprived of blood and oxygen, and so it dies. And in the case of stroke, the part of your body that gets deprived of blood and oxygen is your brain. You know, brains are very interesting. Did you know that the right side of your brain controls the left side of your body, and that the left side of your brain controls the right side of your body? I mean, how twisted is that? Well, you have carotid arteries on both sides of your neck. You have a right carotid artery and you have a left carotid artery. Here's a photo of your carotid arteries. And depending on which side gets blocked, the symptoms of a stroke will vary. If your right carotid artery gets blocked, you will have a stroke on the right side of your brain, but the left side of your body will be affected. And your symptoms will include paralysis on the left side of your body, visual problems, memory loss, and a quick inquisitive type of behavior. Conversely, if your left carotid artery gets blocked, you will have a stroke on the left side of your brain, but the right side of your body will be affected. And your symptoms will include paralysis on the right side of your body, speech and language problems, memory loss, and a very slow and cautious behavior. Of course, you have a lot of other arteries going to your brain, and any of them can get blocked. If they do, your symptoms will vary and not adhere to those strict right versus left-sided distinctions. But here's the key. All the same things that cause a heart attack cause a stroke. If you're at risk for one, you're at risk for the other. It's a double dose of bad. In video 167, I gave you a long list of risk factors for a heart attack. So the risk factors for a stroke are the same. And here is that list again. You've seen this many times now. All I've done on this list is add the words or stroke anywhere it says heart attack. What this means is that the risk calculators that you use to determine your risk for a heart attack also predict your risk for a stroke. I discussed risk calculators in video 168. If you have a lot of the risk factors on that list that I showed you, you don't need a risk calculator to tell you that you're at high risk of stroke. You already know that. But some people need to convert their risk into a numerical value in order to feel compelled to change their diet and lifestyle or to take a medication. And that's what these risk calculators do. The overlap in heart attacks and stroke also means that the dietary measures that you can take to reduce your risk of heart attack also reduce your risk of stroke. Video 169 was all about the low-fat dietary options you can adopt to decrease your risk of a heart attack. They work for decreasing your risk of stroke too. And the bottom line is to eat a 100% plant-based diet. Plants are the good fats, animals are the bad fats. And then video 170 gave you all the high fiber options. And it's the very same diet, plants. And then video 171 was all about low sugar. And that's important because sugar is stored as fat. And that's the fat that clogs your arteries. Aren't you glad you've watched these videos on heart attack in order? It just makes connecting the dots so simple. Next, I presented all your lifestyle options in videos 172 and 173. They included throwing out the cigarettes, controlling your weight, limiting your alcohol to 1 drink a day, and practicing good dental hygiene. These same management options serve to decrease your risk of stroke too. And all of those cardiovascular exercises I presented killed 2 diseases with 1 exercise. Video 174 gave you a whole list of vitamins, minerals, and supplements that decrease clogging of your arteries. They don't know the difference between your heart arteries and your brain arteries, so they'll benefit all of your arteries. And they included calcium and magnesium, more potassium and less sodium, the B vitamins 3, 6, 9, 12, vitamin C, vitamin E, CoQ10, L-carnitine, and alpha-lipoic acid. Same with the herbs I showed you in video 176, which included hawthorn and the phytoestrogens, including red clover, licorice root, hops, wild yam. And then I gave you 4 separate videos addressing multiple aspects of hormonal medication options. And guess what? All that stuff I told you suffices for strokes as well as heart attacks. So if you start taking HRT early in your postmenopause, before the aging process has started making your arteries hard, it will decrease your risk of stroke or prevent a stroke. But if you start taking HRT late in your postmenopause, after your arteries have hardened due to aging, it can cause a stroke. I do want to expound just a bit on the research regarding stroke. As with heart attacks, there is confusion as to whether HRT prevents strokes or causes strokes. Much of the confusion came about with the reporting of the WHI study in 2002 and 2004. All you heard is that HRT caused an increase in strokes. Here are the actual numbers. For women in that study who took both estrogen and progesterone, there was a 41% increase in strokes. That amounted to, numerically, 8 more strokes per 10,000 women per year. And for women who took estrogen alone, the risk of stroke was only slightly increased, but not significantly so. But again, the real catch had to do with timing. For women who started HRT in the early years of their postmenopause, the risk of stroke was decreased. And for women who started HRT in the late years of their postmenopause, the risk of stroke was increased. Once again, the timing principle holds true. The principles and the timing are all the same. Don't you love it when you learn a single principle and you can apply it to many things? It just saves you from getting so bogged down in the minutiae. And finally, I gave you video 181 on all the non-hormonal medication options you can use for reducing your risk of a heart attack. And they all work equally as well for reducing your risk of stroke. Some of them work better for preventing stroke than they do for preventing a heart attack. And some work better for preventing a heart attack than they do for preventing stroke. They included the statin drugs, aspirin, and blood pressure medications. Some people need more than just one reason to get motivated to reduce the risk for a disease. Well, now you have a bunch of overlap between heart attack and stroke. Regardless of which one is of more concern to you, the great thing is that you have so many options for decreasing your risk for both. So you have many ways to avoid a stroke of bad luck. If you need me to help you with any of these things, just go to my website, which is menopausetailor.me, and schedule a one-on-one consultation. Sometimes it helps to find creative and unique ways to suit your personal needs. And I'm always happy to do that. So come back in a week to hear about blood clots at menopause. And in the meantime, subscribe, follow me on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. And I will see you then. Bye.